So, how are you people? Welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep, India's premier online test prep platform for all exams. This is Pradip Sir, Pradip Sengupta, your mentor and guide, and I welcome all of you to this platform. First of all, let me be assured, let me be absolutely certain if you can hear me all right. How many of you are present? Just say hi to me. I hope I'm loud and clear and you can hear me all right. Let us be absolutely sure there is no technical glitch whatsoever. All right. So let us start the session slowly and steadily. Now, we have been meeting on this platform for the last so many days now. There have been occasions when we have had lovely conversation on different aspects of English. Last week, or a couple of days back, not last week, of course, a couple of days back, I took up a session. We started a series on grammar, and I took up some concepts on subject verb agreement. That was part one of subject verb agreement, if you remember. And today I will be continuing that session. I will continue that session, and we will be talking a bit more about the concepts based on subject verb agreement. And mind you, all those who are watching this video, this is going to be very helpful for all those students who want to appear for different entrance exams next year or this year, whether it is IPMAT, whether you are eyeing for CUET or BBA exam or any other entrance exam that will ask you questions on grammar and various aspects of English. This session may be very helpful for you to understand at least some of the concepts of subject verb agreement. So last week we had a lovely discussion, and we were talking about how the verb agrees with the subject and what are the parameters that we have to look into so that we can find out whether the subject agrees with the verb or not. So this session is going to be on grammar, and primarily, what did we discuss that day? We discussed that any subject must agree with the verb number one in number and number two in person. So if you have a singular subject, then the verb used must also be singular. And if you have a plural subject, then you must use a plural verb. This was the basic idea behind this subject verb agreement concept. And let me tell you guys, many questions, whether it is spotting the error, which is very, very common question type in different exams, CUCT, CMAT. So you will confront questions, you will face questions on spotting the errors. You may find questions on sentence improvement also. Right? In sentence improvement also, this concept is tested. This is one of the most important concepts in the spotting error and sentence improvement category. You may also find a few questions based on fill in the blanks, where they will ask you questions, they will just give you some blanks, and the blanks will be followed by some options, and you have to choose the right verb that would agree with the subject. So what was the principal thought that governs this idea? The principal thought was the verb must agree with the subject in number and person. And what did we see? Number means singular or plural subject. And when I talk about person, it means the first person, the second person, or the third person. All right. Okay. So this was the basic that we wanted to cover. We did cover this. Hi, Somil. Somil has a question. Is it really important to go through grammar rules? I think one would be better off reading more and more. Absolutely, I agree with you, Somil. Reading is quintessential and there is no substitute to reading, right? Reading is absolutely one of the areas which many of us don't do. But if you are doing it, that is wonderful. But that having been said, there are many questions, Somil, which are based on the technicalities of grammar. Because when you talk about reading, right, it will help you in three major aspects of English. When it comes to solving RC questions, number one, questions based on verbal reasoning, and questions based on critical reasoning, because there are many areas of analytical reasoning where reading is tested. However, there are many questions, one-liners, sentences, spotting the error questions, where the subtle nuances of grammar is put to test. So in order to see through those questions, a little bit of knowledge of grammar becomes, it comes handy and you will be able to solve more and more questions. So when we look at the technical aspect of the paper, then yes, grammar is useful, but otherwise, as you have rightly put out, that reading is quintessential and that solves most of our problems. Hi Rajat, how are you? Welcome to the session. Okay, I hope that answers the question, Somil. Yeah, okay. So let us talk in continuation. I'm going to pick up from where I left in the last class. Okay, we discussed a couple of very important concepts. If you have not seen that video, I would request you to go back and watch that video where I have discussed some of the basics of subject verb agreement, and this is going to be a continuation of what we discussed in the last class. So the first rule for the day is, whenever you have a sentence that begins with here and there, okay, whenever you have a sentence beginning with here and there, right, it is always followed by a verb, like in this case, here plus a verb, there plus a verb. But it all depends on the subject that we are using right after the verb. Like in this case, the subject is the bus. And in the second case, the subject is four sides. And if you just pay close attention to these two sentences, you will find that bus is singular. Whereas in the second sentence, four sides, it is plural. So depending on the usage or the presence of the subject, we are going to choose the verb, whether it is singular or plural. Since we are using a singular verb in the first sentence, so we have decided to go with a singular verb. Comes is a singular verb. Okay. And in the next case, comes is a singular verb. In the next case, four sides is a plural subject. So we are using a plural verb over here. This is an absolutely easy rule. Nothing very fishy about it. All right. Okay. Somal says, thank you, sir. Okay, I was trying an RC passage of CAT 2000, and one day there was a passage about political science and okay, MCQs, etc. Yes, Somal. When you talk about CAT, Somal, right? Uh, this is a very interesting question. Now, if you look at the pattern of CAT, right, for the last couple of years, we haven't had a single question on grammar, right? If you have gone through it. And since we are dealing with something absolutely different over here, we are talking about areas like CUET, BBA, where sentence correction and spotting the error questions become becomes very important, and they are given adequate weightage along with RCs. CAT is one exam where there is no substitute to reading, and we have to be very, very in-depth as far as our reading is concerned. It has to be analytical. But in this case, when we talk about these kinds of exams, there are some questions which are pretty objective. Okay, and here grammar becomes important. isn't it? Yes. And that happens frequently. To an extent, yes, having a background knowledge is important, and that again comes with reading. How will you otherwise get enlightened about the background? We get enlightened about the background when we read, read, and read, isn't it? So there is no substitute to reading, and reading comes when we read more, right? The skill comes when we read more. So that is why in CAT, reading is absolutely necessary. There is no fallback option, so to speak of. All right. The third sentence, look at the third sentence. Again, we have here, since we are dealing with here and there, what is the subject? The subject is the book. That is why we are using a singular verb over here. So whenever you deal with here and there, make sure that you figure out the subject. Whatever the subject is, accordingly we are going to use the verbs. I hope this makes sense. Can we look at another concept? Okay. Now I would like to draw your attention to some of the specific areas when we talk about distances, when we talk about some periods or time or sums of money, right? And when these are considered as a unit, when you have a unit for a distance, a unit for a period of time, a unit for a sum of money, whatever, since the word is unit, you are getting the hint that we are actually talking about something singular. Unit shows singularity. Unit depicts singularity. So whenever we talk about these words or anything that expresses these words, right, always remember that we are going to be using the singular verb. For example, 4 miles or 7 years or 10,000 rupees, right? These denote units of either distances or money or time, whatever. That is why steadily and uniformly you will see that a singular verb is used. Soman has a question. I tried reading the Hindu editorial and was caught off guard by the complexity of the articles. Couldn't understand a lot of the content. It's like I don't know where to start. We have to start somewhere, Soman, to start with. So if Hindu you think is uphill and reading is something which we have to do, why don't we try with something that is easier to read, soothing to the eyes, soothing to the mind? Can we start with Times of India or something which is easy for us to understand or something that arouses our interest, right? If we start with something which is, as condensed as the content of the Hindu, probably we will lose the encouragement to read. You start reading something that actually, is tempting, is delicious, is palatable. And after you have worked on your reading, because reading is something which is not, it's very hard to come by. People are reluctant to read by and large. You might have noticed that. So in this case, if you show some, how should I put it, desire to read, we have to start with something which is easy to the mind and eyes. All right. So Times of India, read those editorials, read news, or you can start with some storybooks. And slowly you can transition into the content of Hindu and then the other condensed content which RCs are composed of. All right. I hope that answers the question, right? Reading it's a gradual development. Okay. It should go like this, right? You start with something easy, then you start get into the moderate version and then the really difficult version, and that will keep the interest level intact. Okay, coming back to grammar, we were talking about distances, periods, time, sums of money. So all these words will take singular subjects. I hope it is clear. Okay, now here I have tried to use some important expressions for you, right? And how these expressions become important. and look at the usage. The first unit is a number of. Now, whenever you have this expression, a number of, always remember, after a number of, the subject that you are going to use must always be plural. Hence, the verb that follows the subject must also be plural. For example, a number of students are absent today. Isn't it? Since we are using a number of students, look at the verb used, are absent. So a number of is a plural subject which takes a plural verb. A number of plus plural subject plus a plural verb. I hope that answers the question. Okay, then let's look at many, a or an. Many a student, many a or an is again an expression that talks about, something which is plural because the word many is there. But the presence of these articles a or an, it actually warrants the use of a singular subject. And hence, the verb used must be singular. So many a or an will take a singular subject and the verb used must be singular. But remember, the impact of this expression is always plural. The impact is always plural. For example, let's stick to this example. A number of students are present today. However, if I am using many a student, it talks about a number of students, but the usage will be singular. Many a student is absent today. But if we look at the impact of these two expressions, they are always plural. Just because we are using many a or an as an expression, it takes a singular subject and a singular verb. I hope that is clear to you. Yes? Somil again has a point to make over here. But even if I try to read articles, there will be a lot of jargon which I will not understand. Okay. Only people who understand economics will understand those articles. I agree with you, Somil. Even when I read some articles in some of the newspapers, I normally don't understand everything. But we are human beings, we are born to learn. And since we are eyeing those specific exams which are going to ask you questions based on social science, economics, biology, quantum physics. So even though you may not be aware of the technical jargon, we always should be interested to learn. And these exams don't expect you to learn those jargons. They just expect you to understand how those jargons are fitted into the articles so that you can understand the applicability of it, the usage part of it. Isn't it? And that would be it. That would be the essence of it all. You don't have to delve into deeper into the nuances. Why? Because we are here to understand the English, the meaning of it, the what do we infer out of what we are reading, and not the technicalities of the words being used. I hope that answers the question, isn't it? Okay. So this talks about many a or an. Have you understood? Many a or an will take a singular verb. Similarly, the moment you use this expression, more than one, more than one must use a subject which is singular. Hence, the verb used must also be singular. जब भी more than one के बारे में बात. Now, what is the impact? The impact is plural. The impact is plural. But what are we saying? We are saying more than one. And one is always singular. So more than one, although this expression talks about something which is plural, but the usage will limit us to the use of singular subject and the singular verb. So I can say more than one student was absent. However, if I say more than two, now the very word two guarantees the use of a plural subject, and hence a plural verb must be used. For example, more than two students are present today or absent today, whatever the case is. So more than two students, plural, hence the verb used is also plural. So I think this was very, very easy to understand, and I hope you found these expressions quite interesting. A number of plural, many a or an, plural, but the usage is singular. More than one, impact is plural, but the usage is singular. Similarly, more than two, impact is plural and the usage is also plural. Got it? All right. Let's move on to something new. Now these expressions, let's look at these expressions as well as together with, along with. Now in our day-to-day conversation, you might have heard people using these, terms, these phrases while talking to each other. I need that pancake as well as this hot chocolate. Oh, Maya was present together with her friends. I have come along with my friends. Okay, I always try to eat, my butter with cheese. So these are the examples that we, the terms that we use when we speak. But there is a way to treat them. There is a way to treat them. एक example लेते हैं. मान लीजिए, if I say X, please consider this to be singular. All right. If I say Y, please consider this to be singular as well. However, if I say XY, it would be plural. And if I say YZ, it is also considered plural. All right. So I will be using a lot of variables to make you people understand, because maths is quite easy to, absorb. For example, if I say X as well as Y, okay. For example, John as well as Tommy. So what are we joining? We are joining two singular subjects with as well as. Similarly, XY together with Z. The teachers, plural, together with the principal. All right. Next one. X along with YZ. For example, the parents along with the child. And the next one, let's say X and Y, Maya with Tarun. Now, why am I writing all these? Whenever you come across as well as, together with, along with, please remember that these are the phrases which are going to join two subjects or more than two subjects. And there may be situations when these two subjects may vary in number. When I say number, I'm always trying to tell you about the singular or the plural number. Like in this case, XY, singular, singular, XYZ, plural, singular, XYZ, singular, plural, or XY, singular, singular. So whenever you come across as well as, together with, along with, and with, please remember the verb agrees with the first subject. Okay, the verb agrees with the first subject. Like in this case, what is the first subject? X. In the second case, what is the first subject? XY. In the third case, what is the first subject? Again X. In X and Y, what is the first subject? Again X. So, if the subject is plural, use a plural verb. If the subject is singular, use a singular verb. Why? Because in such situations, the verb agrees with the first subject in number and person. Okay? So if I tell you, the teachers along with the principal is or are present, your answer should be are present. Why? Because the first subject is teachers. Understood? So whenever you have such beautiful expressions, look no further, make the verb agree with the first. Does it make sense to you? Yes? Okay. Moving on to the next concept. देखो, scissors, trousers, spectacles, tweezers, tongs. Okay, they come in pairs of two. So whenever you talk about such terms, scissors, trousers, spectacles, tweezers, tongs, etc., means the words which are ending with S. What do? They represent a single thing. Scissor is a single thing, but it is made of two. Trousers, single, but it is made of two. Similarly, spectacles, I'm wearing one. All right. But the treatment is always plural. The treatment is always plural. If I say, where is the scissor? Where is the scissor? This is incorrect. I should have said, where are the scissors? All right. So where are the scissors should be the right expression and not where is the scissors. So once again, when we talk about scissors, trousers, spectacles, tweezers, tongs, they represent a single thing, but the usage must always be plural. I hope it is clear. All right. Now let us talk about another very important concept, that is the error of proximity. Now, what is error of proximity? Error is mistake. And what is proximity? Proximity means closeness. Okay, proximity means closeness. Okay, to be near to something. To be near to something. So whenever you might have noticed that sometimes the sentences are so long that we see a distinct gap between the subject and the verb. All right. So whenever there is a gap between the subject and the verb, error of proximity may crop up. Why? Because the verb then starts wrongly, agreeing with something which it should not have agreed with. So in such a scenario, we must find out what is the main subject and where it is, positioned in the sentence, and where is the main verb and where is the main verb positioned in the sentence. And then we will try to make the verb agree with the subject. All right. For example, look at this sentence. The quality of food and beverages were not so good. The quality of food and beverages were not so good. Now, where is the verb? Were not so good. Where is the verb? Now, let's ask ourselves a question. Were not so good. What was not so good? So the answer is quality, but the quality is singular. This is the singular subject, right? If quality is singular and if quality is the subject that this verb talks about, then why am I using a plural verb? Where is a plural verb? So this is a wrong sentence. We should change the verb into singular. Because one might read the sentence like this, the quality of food and beverages were not so good. And when you're reading it, it looks like, it appears as if the verb is agreeing with beverages, which is wrong. Right? Why? Because there is a distinct gap between the main subject and the main verb. This is error of proximity. So locate the main subject, that is the quality. Look at the verb, were. Now were is wrong. What should we do? Correct it, make it work. So now the sentence stands corrected. It should read like this. The quality of food and beverages were not so good. Didn't you find this concept interesting? Yes? Okay. Let's look at the second one. The number of students appearing in various competitive exams are increasing every. Students, exams, so many nouns, so many subjects, right? But is exam the main subject? Look at the predicate, are increasing every year. Where is the verb? Are. Now ask yourself a question. What is or are increasing? क्या increase कर रहा है? You know the answer. It is the number which is increasing. It is the number, not the students. I am talking about the number. So in this sentence, the main subject is the number, and the number is what? It is singular. And that is why we must not use are, we must use is. Because the subject is singular, hence the verb used must also be singular. So how should you read the sentence? The sentence goes like this. The number of students appearing in various competitive exams is increasing every year. That's the way to look at it. Okay. So that was error of proximity, my friends. So when you keep solving questions like this, right, in no time you will be able to master all the concepts. But then to master all the concepts and to have confidence, one has to practice, and one has to practice regularly. So my mantra to you all will be to practice every day, because practice makes a man perfect. Okay, you can't be perfect, but you can chase perfection. And that's how we go on increasing our concepts. We build on our concepts. All right, easy. Next important concept. Let's look at it. Now over here, we are dealing with some X word, ICS, like politics, athletics, ethics, physics. It is not that if the word ends with an S, it has to be plural. Though they might sound plural, but actually these words are singular. Okay, so you have to be very careful about the words that end with ICS. I call them the X words. So they are generally singular in nature. So physics, ethics, athletics, politics, right, must take a singular verb. Is this understood? Okay. Names of books. Okay, books are the real friend of men. We must be reading, as I was talking to Somil, and I agree with him that there is no substitute to reading. Okay, but when you look at the titles of the book, what is the technicality involved? Great expectations. Now, expectations are plural. Wuthering Heights, Tom Jones, Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Though they sound plural, but at the end of the day, they are just the names of the books. So title of the books or the names of the books are always singular. They should be treated as singular. Keep that in mind. So what was the concept? Title of books are always going to be singular. All right? Okay. I want your attention to this slide. Okay? Whenever you deal with words like much, less, little, more, what are they? They are adjectives. Okay? But sometimes these adjectives, right, are used as nouns. Less time was, we got less time. Okay? Right? The little women or little women, right? More rice, more milk. They're actually adjectives. They quantify things. But when they are used as nouns, for example, a little of good habits makes your life happy. A little makes your life happy. So the subject of any sentence has to be a noun. So it does not matter whether we are using an adjective form as a noun or whatever the case is. Okay. Less than 10 lakh rupees is required. Okay. Now over here, although they look like, singular, they're always a little of good habits makes your life happy. Okay. So it should be actually singular, not plural. Less than 10 lakh rupees is required. Why are we using singular for them? Don't worry about this typo error. A little, right? Whenever you refer to the quantity of anything, since they cannot be counted, we are talking about the quantity of it. So it should always be considered singular. So a little or less must always be considered singular and not plural. All right? Okay. So this brings you or us to the end of today's discussion. So we have discussed everything that we had to discuss on the concepts as far as the concepts are concerned of subject verb agreement. In the next session, we are going to take up some important questions. So the first couple of classes were on the concepts of subject verb agreement, and in the next class we are going to be talking about the important questions that are based on subject verb agreement. We will start with the easier ones first, and then we will slowly talk about the ones which are going to be tricky. So keep practicing and keep reading, and at the same time try to solve more and more questions. Okay, so that's all from our side from BYJU'S Exam Prep over here. If you have liked the session, please hit the like button, comment on the session if you have liked it, and share it with your friends. And subscribe to our channel so that whenever we come up with new videos, you get the notifications. All right. So on that note, it's a bye-bye from my side. Thank you very much, and thank you for being present at BYJU'S Exam Prep platform. Thank you very much. See you in the next class.